our numeric field, amount. Okay. What are my filters?
Your three up top.
Okay, so I've got posting dates. Come up here, I need to make sure I lock that reference down so it doesn't move. I need to look at my document type. And I need to look up here. And my salesperson code. Up here. Anything else?
Yes.
I've got a customer.
Customer number.
Customer number. Excellent. We can't forget to attach it to our train. And this one, I'm not going to lock down at all.
It'll naturally.
What's that?
It'll naturally.
It'll move down, and that's what we want. If we lock this down, we don't want to get the customer number always be 10,000.
Shall we put that one first?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
The order that we, since we're not applying any sorting here,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter which order we choose.
Okay.
You know, technically, if you wanted to, we can see, that doesn't work for this data source. With the SQL connector, I can actually show the query so you can see select extra this from that, and you'll see sometimes it removes and filters around based on the most optimal one. Okay, so we run it, we should all have something similar to those numbers. Now let's add our fits, so that way we don't have to worry about it. Maybe add some formatting. Right, stretches. Yeah. So even if I had one that was this long this time and I reran it, it would shrink it down to fit. Now what sometimes I see people do is, well, I don't really want it to be right up against there. I'll see people do this. Min width. I say, well, you know what? I always want it to be at least this wide. This fit will look at everything in this column. So now we can see it stretches to hold that value.
That's
really
neat.
cool.
Okay.
Now, the other thing that we have is, that's pretty ugly, right? The good news is these keywords, fit, hide, I can add them to column A. So I can hide this row.
That is cool.
I could hide my filters if I didn't want to show them. Or if I said, you know what? I want them to see the posting date, and I want them to see that salesperson code, but I don't want them to see the document type. That's there for me, it's not necessarily for them. So I'll hide that row. And now we just see those lines. All right.
Can I see your formula on G?
On G,
Yeah.
it's just first customer name,
On
where the
F8.
number is in F8. For me, it's F8. Now I'm going to kind of jump way ahead real quick, but I want to at least kind of put this out in your brain. Because when we start talking about the next section, your grouping, we're going to found that's, like I say, okay, we're going to start with this. Just take my word for it. Well, I want to at least explain why we're going to do this up front. So let's say we need to get a total of our returns, right? We need to sum all those up. Well, normally we would just come in, we could do something very similar and just come in and say, well, give me the auto sum. It's going to say, oh, great, yep, I grabbed those. Right? Maybe put in report total. Okay, looks great. Now here's what's going to happen. When I refresh my report, my number changed. It went from 3,000 something to 292. When we look at our sum function, it's now saying, well, sum up H8 through H8. It has to go back to that whole concept of when I go in to rerun a report, it goes back to the original design, which took away all those values, and then it reruns the report. It inserts those in, but my sum function doesn't understand that we added those back in and we need to include them.
Brian,
Yeah.
I got errors everywhere.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. Let's see what we've got.
I don't know what I did wrong when I run it.
Okay, because you have a key there, not a summary list. So hit OK. Let's go back to our design. Go to our function wizard, NL. And the only thing you forgot was to put the actual field for customer number. So you created a whole list of keys, and then you're pointing to NL first to the key, and it doesn't understand what the heck that is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there is the customer number.
Yes, customer number.
Oh, got it.
Okay, so let's make sure everything else is working.
I did the design.
Okay, yep, everything else then populates.
Looks like it will.
So when I did the report, I did when I.
All right, there you go. That's all. The only thing that was wrong
So
there.
I
So-
just the row number and then.
Is there a way to tell it to automatically process the phones and homes records?
Yes, that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah, you get Ruben up to speed there. Okay. So part of the problem was that I made a change while I was in report
That
mode.
key is different. It's
Any
here.
changes we make in report mode are either not
Now
gonna be
it's
saved
pointing
or we're gonna get
at
strange
this
results.
data.
I got a strange result
Because
here.
this is brand new. You just show it right now.
So I need to go back into design mode.
I thought we will, but
I'm gonna go ahead and
yeah, it's a customer return.
delete that. I'm gonna fix my sum here. I'm gonna say, okay, well now I'll do an auto sum here. All right, grab that cell, grab my replicator. Run my report, still get the wrong answer. Why? Well, I told Excel exactly what to sum up, and it took it literally, sum up each 8. And again, it doesn't understand that we included all these values that we want to include with it. So what we have to do is we have to introduce a new concept. It's called the anchor row. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this. The anchor row is a row or a column below a replicated region. So this is my replicated region, right? My replicator is right here, and I told it to replicate this row. Therefore, my anchor row is the row directly beneath it. The only thing that this is going to do is be a placeholder. We're not going to put anything in there. What I'm going to do is create my report total right underneath that. I'm going to do sum. I'm going to grab my replicator, and I'm going to grab that anchor row. What is that going to do for me? Well, because we're inserting those new values between those two cells, Excel will then expand to say, okay, well you wanted this cell specifically and you wanted this cell specifically, and then you shoved all this stuff in between them. I should probably sum those up. So now when we run our report, I'll get the correct total every single time. Okay. If this changes to invoice, I now get the correct total. Dynamically creates that report total for me.
There is an arrow by the total returns that I get. If I click on it, I get an error. That's because it's testing environment, or?
No, it might be because, did you change it to the Jet Data Grid earlier today?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe not.
Well, let's not click on the arrow for right now. We'll come back to that in a sec. Yeah, you should have the Jet Data Grid. I think you might not have switched it. What you can do is go to your data source settings, up in the ribbon.
Uh-huh.
Change it to use the Jet Data Grid if it's not selected already.
Okay. It is selected.
Okay.
I lost
Then-
my table.
Lost your tables. Okay. Internet license for this data source. Are we logged in the same thing as yesterday? Okay, connection. Because it said you have no access. Cancel that. Let's go back to browse. I want to see what that message actually said before we close it out. So hit browse again. Oh, now it's letting you do it. So hit OK. And then let's go back to general again. And do the same thing, browse. And scroll down to the same folder, the training DB and and it's the nav 5.0 client.
Still.
Hit OK. Okay,
So
now
the
let's
problem
test our
is
connection.
In this environment up here, left it up, even though I logged in up.
Okay, so hit
Shut it
OK.
down.
This is, we fixed this earlier today, so go ahead and hit OK.
But the weird part is I can go in, I can open a new one.
Okay. Let's go into Excel's options.
For this work.
So File, Options, scroll down to Advanced, halfway down. And then scroll about 3/4 of the way down, there's one that says Enable Multi-Threaded Calculations or something along those lines. Keep scrolling down. There it is. Enable, disable that. Hit OK. Let's go back into our data source settings. Jet data grid, so good. Hit OK. Save your file. Close Excel altogether, reopen it up, and you should be good to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I talked with our support team, and they said that error sometimes has to do with that multi-threading on a local database. So we wanted to fix that. We got everybody else's situation on that. We got an error back here.
Oh, there we go. No, I think we may have solved it.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, so we use that anchor row when we need to do totals of things from a dynamic list. If we just say, look at our replicator, it's not going to understand that it needs to expand. If I add that while I'm in report mode, it doesn't understand when I refresh it because it deletes all those rows.
So the same thing would happen with any type of underlining you want to do or anything.
So we're going to use this for our next section when we start getting into grouping reports. Before we move on to the grouping reports, everybody on board with us so far? Very good?
So the only question I have is, what does it look like on the end users?
I can tell you, we can actually show you. So in the application settings, if you're ever curious, I can simulate viewer mode.
Okay.
So when I come in and hit OK, this is essentially what they're going to see. Okay? They don't have access to design. They only can report and refresh. They don't have access to any of these tools. But they have drill down, debug, schedule, these other ones.
So right now, if we have no viewers and just developers, we're the only ones that can do this, right?
Right. Well, you have unlimited viewers, but nobody's assigned to viewers, from what I understand.
So it still holds true, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Did you change something when I wasn't paying attention on your returns?
Yeah, he changed the invoice. Changed
Okay.
the
Oh,
invoice.
yeah, sorry.
So I was like,
I don't know how, there should be an app.
So if I email this straight from here, will they just see it as if it were Excel?
They would see it like this. If they didn't have Jet installed at all, yeah, this would just look like an Excel file. What you see here. So let's switch back out of viewer mode here.
So that's it.
If you ever really want to play around Jet Express, see how little you can do with it.
Is that like below viewer?
Yeah. Well, you have designer stats, but you have access to the GL function, a little tiny bit of the NL function, and the table builder, and that's it. So it's super limited as to what it can do. You can't do replication at all with it. Okay. So yeah, I did change this to invoice just to show you that it does dynamically change.
Oh, okay.
So you go back and now it's refixed it. Okay. So our next section, we're going to get into grouping reports. We started touching on the summing and the subtotaling, but we're going to dig into that a little bit more once we get into our grouping reports because they're a little bit more complicated. We'll do our final development steps. And I've never actually had time to get into multi-level grouping. That's usually, I assign that to people who come to the Portland class. They don't have a connection to their database. They say, that's what you get to do on day 3. Basically build a group, salesperson, city, customer. Build multi-level ones going down. The concepts are still the same, it's just a little bit more complicated. So what do we want to talk about in grouping reports? Well, we need to talk about expanded regions. and the procedure of how we're going to build that in. So we're going to start on page 4.3. We're going to talk about the replicator region. Everything we've done up to this point is rows. In reality, that's equal to rows equals 1, right? I'm replicating one row, but I can say rows equals 4. I can say rows equals 17. I can say rows equals 42. And it's going to copy that entire region and duplicate that over and over again. That's how we're going to build these grouping reports, by building in other replicators in a region and referencing our primary value. So we can have rows equals something, columns equals something, and it just now mentions the sheets. But rows is probably the most common one we use. Now, when it comes to financial statements, columns is pretty common. Columns equals 3, because I might have, give me the balance, the budget, the variance, right? So I need to have multiple columns for each month. So January, give me the balance, budget,